Welcome to this video tutorial on composing with OpenMusic. Today we're going to be taking a look at using Karabiner Elements on Mac. I apologize in advance if you do not use Mac. So if you are a Windows or Linux user, my sincerest apologies. This might not be the most applicable to your setup. If you are a Mac user, again, this isn't a tutorial specifically about working with OpenMusic. It's a little bit OpenMusic adjacent, but by the end I will be showing some keyboard shortcuts that I've devised for OM that have been particularly helpful, in addition to some that I use in Finale. Alright, so if you aren't familiar with Karabiner, you can find it online at this URL, and I'll put that link down below as well. But I found it to be really helpful. I've used it for maybe 6 or 7 months now, and I've really been pleased. So I initially began using it to change the keyboard layout on my Mac from QWERTY to an alternate layout called Colemak, and you can kind of see down here what that looks like. And after making that first change to Colemak, I began encountering a modification. This particular implementation is called CapsLock. It's available online, as you can see. But basically what it does is it changes the CapsLock key and maps it to these 4 keys that you see down below. Command, Option, Control, Shift. I believe they're all right command, right option, right control, right shift, which actually does make a difference, that distinction between those keys on the right and left-hand side of the keyboard. In any case, what it does is it allows me to map a large number of various functions or even applications to key combinations using Caps Lock as this new Hyper Key modification. And again, I'll show kind of these key commands down in the bottom right so that you can see. But as you can see, the package comes already with a large number of really helpful and useful mappings. And if you are interested, you can very easily, well, I should say not very easily, but if you are dedicated, you can change those mappings and create some custom mappings. So for example, this guide shows the mappings that I currently use on my Mac. And so each of these items down below is triggered only when that key is pressed with my Hyper Caps Lock. So for example, I can do Caps Lock T, and that will open up Terminal. I can do Caps Lock or Hyper S to open up this application Easy Find, which I like to use for advanced searching. I've got a mapping for OpenMusic, Hyper R, that will open both OpenMusic and the synth that I like to use, RUDP player Mojave. So as you can see, I've got a number of really useful mappings, and I use these all the time. They do save me quite a bit of time as I'm working. So after I began using Colemak and also using these hyper modifications, I was ending up doing a lot of kind of monotonous engraving of just really easy, trivial examples of musical excerpts in Finale. And at the time I had been carrying around with me a really small 25 key MIDI controller, but I realized I could very easily create my own custom Finale keyboard mapping with Karabiner. And if you are a Finale user, if you have been for a while, I'm sure you are familiar with the large number of techniques for changing key bindings in Finale, or using things like Keyboard Maestro. And indeed, there are a large number of macros that people have created for working in Finale. So this is all to say that these may not be the best options, but for me they have been very useful, and I thought I'd share them. So the great thing about Karabiner is that you can easily set up a number of different profiles. So I've got my main one for Colemak, I've got one for Finale, and I've got one for OpenMusic. And I could easily imagine in the future, if I spend much more time in a different software platform and become dissatisfied with those keyboard shortcuts, at this point it would be fairly easy for me to come up with some new keyboard shortcuts for that software in Karabiner. So in Finale, I'll just do a quick demonstration. Again, I was most concerned with just being able to enter pitch information very quickly. So I've got this mapping here that allows me to shift up and down pitch level. And on my keyboard, if I press the left bracket, that's actually going up, and the right or closing bracket is down. By the same token, I can jump octaves, and on my keyboard right now I'm actually pressing G to go down an octave, B to go up an octave, and as you can see, Karabiner is automatically mapping that to shift up arrow, shift down arrow. I can change the note duration very easily, and this is all just above the home row for my fingers. So this is W for whole, F for half, P for quarter, etc. And because the thing that I need to do most frequently is actually enter the note, I've actually mapped the space bar onto enter, so I can very quickly enter some pitch data, get that in there. And of course, I've got a number of other alterations. So I can press C to toggle between a note and a rest of the same duration. And I can, let's see, what else do I have? V is for a tie, D is for a dot. I actually mapped my enter key onto backspace so that my right pinky can very quickly delete a note if I need to. And then of course I've got chromatic alterations, so M for sharp, H will toggle between forcing the accidental to show, backspace is for natural, and flat is mapped onto Z. And then I can add augmentation dots as well with the comma. And I don't think I have anything mapped to period. Let's see. Oh, period is for breaking beams, changing beams. Then the final thing that I can do is move back and forth along what I've entered by using the left and right arrows. And on my keyboard, those are mapped to I and O, which lie right underneath my right pinky. So I can do all that navigation there very quickly, very easily. And needless to say, this has saved me a lot of time, as I've spent hours upon hours entering musical examples as part of my work. And it's also been very convenient. Like I mentioned, it has meant that I don't have to lug around even a very lightweight keyboard with me. I've got it all ready to go right here on my Mac. So that's a quick example with Finale. I'll close that for the moment. And I'll take a quick pause just to show how this is all being done. So Karabiner breaks down key mappings into these different categories. So we've got the simple modifications, and again, that's what I use to turn my QWERTY keyboard into a Colemak keyboard. The complex modifications are what's really involved in all of the shortcuts that you see, that you did see in that other preview window. And those are not quite as easy to manipulate. At the moment, Karabiner doesn't have handy graphical interface for changing those. So if you do want to do your own custom keyboard mappings, what you will have to do is go to the configuration folder, and you'll have to open up this configuration file and edit it manually. So I'll show you just a few of the key bindings that I created. So if you're on a Mac and you want to do something like launch OpenMusic, let me see if I can find where I set that up. Yeah. So this is the command that I use within my Colemak keyboard layout when I want to do work in OpenMusic. And so, like I mentioned, I mapped it to R on my keyboard. And so by pressing Hyper or CapsLock R, that will actually trigger a series of 3 commands. And these are all completed via the terminal, without the terminal actually appearing on the screen. So what Karabiner is doing is it's telling the terminal via this shell command modifier that it needs to open our UDP player Mojave, which again is what I use to output synthesized sounds from OpenMusic. So it will open that up. It'll then open up OM. And it will also do a really handy thing, which is it will change the Karabiner profile that I'm currently using from Colemak to OpenMusic. So it'll just do that automatically. And again, if I want to, say I'm in OpenMusic and want to change back to Colemak, I can use caps lock and then dash, or hyphen, depending, and it will toggle back and forth. So if you see up here, it's toggling back and forth between OpenMusic and Colemak layouts. So that's really handy. I've got ones for Logic. I've got a shell command that will open up a little kind of scratch pad text document. Again, I can search. I can use terminal. If I need to quick open up YouTube and look up the latest composition by Thomas Addis, I can do that. I can open up Audacity. So there are any number of things that I can do. I can also have it open up a folder that I use consistently. So let me see. I have a key binding. So if I do Command C, it'll open up in Finder my window of current compositions. So those are just a couple of handy ways that I use the Colemak layout. The layout for OpenMusic is actually a little bit more involved. So first of all, the reason I did this is OpenMusic does have some very handy keyboard shortcuts. And if you ever are curious and want to bring those up, you can just type H, and this really lovely list will show talking about the different key bindings. But I didn't find a place in OpenMusic to actually make your own custom keyboard shortcuts. If anyone does know of a way to do that, I'd love to know more about that. But as of yet, that's not something that I've seen, and searching the forum didn't come up with anything. So what I did is I made my own layout for working in OpenMusic, and I'll show that here. And I expect that this may change as I continue working in OM. But for the moment, I've mapped basically the OpenMusic objects that I end up using most to these various keyboard shortcuts. So we've got substitute, text file, flatten a list, OM plus, BPF, etc., etc., etc. You can see all these listed here. One that has been very helpful is, as you know, you can double-click anywhere in the workspace to begin making a new object. I was able to actually map that double-click onto Hyper O, and that will just pull it up as well. So just a little bit quicker. The way that is actually most useful is once I was able to do that, I was actually able to create all of these other shortcuts. So what each of these shortcuts is doing is it's double-clicking in the workspace, making that little new object box, and then it's telling the terminal to copy text from a text file and actually paste it into the box. So for example, if I do Command W, that pulls up this voice factory, Command T for typing in a comment. Let's see what else. Command V, oh yeah, we already did that for voice. Command W, I think should be mapped, yeah, to text file. So as you can see, it doesn't quite work perfectly, depending on how many different applications I have open. There can be a little bit of a lag that actually will affect what gets pasted. But for the most part, it's actually been very helpful. It's sped things up quite a bit. Probably the best shortcut that I've used, however, is actually one that I'll show now. So we'll make a couple of voice objects. If you have used OpenMusic on a MacBook with the trackpad, you very well know that sometimes dragging patch cables can be a bit of a nuisance, and especially a nuisance if they're very far spread apart and your fingers reach the edge of the trackpad before you've gotten to the other object. So slightly as a way of fixing this, I actually mapped hyperspace onto double click and drag, so that by holding that I can really quickly move patch cords. I can drag objects around the workspace as well. If I double tap the space bar, it opens things up. So all of this has been actually much more helpful than I would have realized. It sounds kind of trivial, but it does save some time and hassle and hair pulling after the fourth try trying to drag a patch cable from an outlet to an inlet. So the one thing that I will say is specifically these OpenMusic shortcuts do end up being quite involved. So let's say, let me see if I can find this one. So yeah, so here's the complex modification for making a substitution object. And I mapped that onto Q, so I'll test that here. There we go, yeah. And again, what I'm telling the computer to do is to clear the computer's clipboard, and then locate this text file and copy the contents. Then it double clicks in the workspace. It actually uses Control V to paste that into the box, and then press Enter, and then escape. And that's the modification that I'm using to actually make all of that happen. One weird byproduct of these shortcuts is, here, let me pull it up. Yes, a strange byproduct is that for each shortcut I use, I have to have a separate text file, which obviously isn't ideal. They're just really brief snippets of text to quick copy onto the clipboard and enter. But for now, it gets the job done, and it does save me time. So because this topic is so complex, likely this may not all make sense in so short a video. But if you are interested in this, do leave a comment or get in contact with me if you want to learn more about setting up these shortcuts in OpenMusic or in Finale on your Mac. So thank you again for watching. If this is useful, leave a comment. If you want to be notified about further videos in the future, be sure to subscribe, and I'll look forward to working with you again in the next video.